Alright, so for our Unit 3 project, you're going to click Projects and Reflections, Files, Found Object Sculpture, and open up the PowerPoint to follow along to this video. So yes, we are doing a found object sculpture or performance because our Unit 3 is recall/narrative, which means telling a story or idea or recalling something about yourself or your past. So, art from random stuff at my house. Yeah, art at home can seem impossible, but really it's not, especially for remote learning. For a lot of artists, the things you find at home are perfect items to make art out of. So for this unit, we're going to look at the art history of ready-made and found objects. So basically, with art made from ready-made and found objects, it raises eyebrows and leaves people to question, is it really art? So this lesson is geared towards developing a better understanding of the ready-made and found object art within art history. It's also to remind us that sometimes the items at home we take for granted because it could be a source of inspiration or into a piece of art itself. The beauty of the ready-made or the found objects art is that the possibilities are endless and it puts the power in your hands to become the artist. So we'll go over the definition of found object and ready-made art later on. The first example is Lobster Telephone by Salvador Dali in 1938. A lot of you might have heard of Dali from a lot of his famous paintings, his dreamlike surreal paintings. So basically, he placed a plaster lobster onto the receiver of a telephone. It's only a small change that turned an everyday object into something ridiculous. He was a showman or very dramatic, and he liked the idea of absurdity and the role of the unconscious in art, which basically means what happens to the viewer as they look at the art without them realizing how their perception changes. The most famous example of ready-made art is Fountain by Marcel Duchamp from 1917. So basically what he did is he wanted to challenge people's ideas or definitions of what art is. So he took a urinal or a fountain and basically he put his alias or pseudonym, which is sort of a fake cover name, R. Mutt. He painted it on the urinal and then put it in a gallery setting and said it was his artwork. A lot of people raised their eyebrows, was critical of him calling this a piece of art, but it became really popular, and the fountain was one of the many ready-mades, which we'll talk about that word again later on, that Duchamp took from everyday life and he put it in a gallery context because he wanted to question not just the beauty and value of art, but also its entire concept, its entire existence. What is art? This art is known as anti-art or Dada. So if you hear Dadaism or Dadaist, they're talking about anti-art. So it basically means art that challenges the general understanding of what art is. My favorite one is called My Bed by Tracy Emin from 1998. Basically, it's the artist freshly slept in bed with crumpled pillows, disheveled sheets, and dirty tissues and other junk all around the footboard. It debuted in an art gallery in 1999. The media and a lot of people really were critical of it. There were a lot of letters criticizing the artwork, calling it so-called artwork. Even a furious housewife was apprehended by museum staff when she attacked the piece with cleaning products. So clearly this got a reaction out of a lot of people. A lot of which is to say is that My Bed is the kind of artwork that prompts the timeless response, but is it art? To which I reply, of course it is. Why? Because Emin said so, and she is the artist. And the power is in the artist's hands. Another good example is Untitled by Joseph Cornell in 1950. Basically, this is a box filled with everyday items like stamps, newspaper cuttings, other objects that have no really relevance to each other in a wooden box. And I know that doesn't seem that remarkable, but it's the artist's explanation that really changes it into something special. So for him, this container was a metaphor for the entire world inhabited by these strange items, sort of like a treasure of curiosity that can really make people feel nostalgic. So the fragments, once ornamental or decorative or beautiful objects, come together in a magical and dreamlike way. So he took very everyday items and arranged it in a way that seems not very special, but because of his own meaning towards it, it really transforms it into something much more intricate. This one is called Electric Dress by Atsuko Tanaka from 1956. It's a bunch of flickering light bulbs and electrical wires that form a dress. When the artist wore it, you can only see her hands and face. It was modeled after the traditional Japanese kimono. It drew a lot of attention. People were even worried that she would electrocute herself while wearing it. But the part of the art group that this artist joined wanted to distract themselves from the horrific events of Japan's wartime past at the time. So again, they're trying to make a statement that really is tied into politics and history of their region. Even if when you first look at this piece, that's not what it seems like at all. This one I like a lot, called Eroded Landscape by Tony Craig from 1992. Basically, the artist tries to recreate a lot of different landscapes. This one in particular, a Greek temple out of different frosted glass, vases and cups and pieces he had. The glass shelves that he used could be found in any ordinary home. And for this one, it really meant something to their owner, but not necessarily to the viewer of the artwork. So Craig really, he specialized in the arrangement of industrial or manufactured objects. He wanted to talk mostly about the idea of consumer waste, or how much people waste when buying and selling things. So he took these everyday things and arranged them into a really nice poetic way, into a still life. So that's another way you can comment on different life topics. So what do you think this artwork could be titled? This artist likes to take preserved animals that were used like in labs and science and stuff, that are preserved in formaldehyde and chemicals, and display them. When I asked classes, they said, well, this could be called Shark Tank, Shark in Water, Water, Jaws, a lot of very straightforward answers. So the actual title of this piece is called An Oak Tree by Michael Craig Miller from 1973. So this artist was known for using ready-made by taking animals that were bisected or dissected and soaked in formaldehyde, which is that preservative. He toyed with the power of the artist by exhibiting a glass of water alongside a statement claiming that he changed the water to an oak tree. So clearly this water is not literally an oak tree made out of wood, but he wanted to experiment with the power of the artist by saying, well, this represents an oak tree. The water in this piece represents an oak tree, and I can call it an oak tree because I'm the artist, I'm the one with the power, and I get to say what it is. So that was kind of his idea behind that. So some vocab to consider. The authoritative voice, like with Michael Craig Miller's piece just then. Within art, the authoritative voice is the person who makes the rules, so to speak, concerning an artwork, art form, or the understanding of an art. It usually shapes the general understanding of the piece. Basically, who is in power and who decides the facts about the artwork. Most of the time, people would say the artist. Sometimes the artist doesn't leave much information, so the authoritative voice is the viewer of the piece. But with your project, you are your own authoritative voice, and you get to decide the meaning of your own artwork. The next vocab word is objet trouvé, which is the French, or like a fancy way of saying found object. It's a natural or man-made object or a fragment of an object that is found or sometimes bought by an artist and kept because of some intrinsic interest or some special interest the artist sees in it. Or a natural discarded object found by chance, so you weren't really looking for it, you just happened upon it, that holds an aesthetic value. which means that really you just like the way that it looks. Ready-made is a subsection of found object art, because with found object art, usually there are a bunch of objects the artist has that modifies it or sculpts it into an artwork or changes it into an artwork. Ready-made is where you just find an object and you sort of present it as is. You didn't really change much to the object before presenting it as your artwork. The example would be the Duchamp fountain, where really he didn't change much to that urinal other than adding his fake name, but he had his own authoritative voice, so he got to say and decide that it was art. So questions to ask yourself. With your objects, what is it? Really dissect it. Are these normal everyday objects? Why is it art? And why wouldn't most people consider your own unmade bed or urinal at school even to be art too? If you're told this is art, why would or wouldn't you agree? Why does or why doesn't it meet the criteria you've set for what art is? So what forms can your project be exactly? What could be photos or videos of a sculpture or scene made out of a sculpture? So it's an object that you created out of other objects. So that's why you have the glue in your supply bag. In case you need an adhesive to stick pieces together, that glue is there. But you do not have to use the craft glue in your bag if you don't require it. You could do videos / photos of a performance. I'll go into that a little bit more as well. Or if there's a third option that I don't really mention much about, but you think it would work best for your object, just let me know and run it by me. It'll probably be fine. Because again, the form that you present it in is entirely up to you. So if you go through this PowerPoint, I have 2 examples that would be fun to watch and really helpful if you want to do a performance. Just click on the link and watch it. For the second one, just watch the timestamp that I list here. Other examples of performance or different modes of art that were not exactly a sculpture that past students have done. One student wanted to talk about the repetitiveness or how repetitive their life and schedule seemed because of quarantine. So they bought 24 chicken nuggets 3 days in a row, and every hour they would set an alarm on their phone and eat a chicken nugget, and they videotaped it. And over the course of 3 days, so even at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., they ate a chicken nugget every hour and videotaped it. And their final project was a montage of the clips of them eating the chicken nugget with a voiceover talking about how repetitive and bored they felt at home because of quarantine. Another example, another student's dream is to travel to Europe, but they don't have, the means, the money, or the time to do it. So they found this interesting item, like this ceramic item from a thrift store, and they're actually shipping it to Europe. So they're taking photos of the object, the label, the packaging. They're taking screenshots of the shipping updates that they're getting in their email. And hopefully it'll be shipped to Europe and back by the end of our unit. And they want to write a little bit about it. So there's really a lot of different things you could do for this. Another student is making different masks to represent different emotions they feel a lot of the time, and doing little experimental, not dance, but like movements for each mask, and submitting videos. So those are some fun examples. If you think of something else, let me know. And if you need help coming up with something, or you're not sure if it's something you want to do, just ask. In terms of sculptures, we have representative and model sculptures. So clearly this looks like a teddy bear, but it's not made out of fabric and stuffing. It's made out of found objects that the artist had. This is like the Disney Mickey Mouse head logo, but it's made out of candy to make it more fun and whimsical. Or you could do something wacky and unconventional. So me personally, I love found object sculptures with like Barbie bodies in it. I just think it's not only very funny, but sort of unsettling. And I like that feeling. So really you can use any sort of objects that you have to create anything that any idea you want to convey at all. It is totally up to you. You could do something abstract, so maybe arrange something by color, try and tell a story. So I think this is like a beer can to represent driving under the influence, and the toy cars in and out represent what could happen if you do that. Or it could mean something else. Again, it just depends on what the artist intended. And this one I don't quite remember the meaning of. I should have saved it, but it's like a walker like older people used to walk with a tarp tied to it. I remember the meaning being very cool. I just don't remember what it was. This is also another option you can do, but you definitely don't have to. A lot of students love making jewelry out of just found objects they have. It's something really fun. I have a student making a jacket out of those like worm on a string toys. So again, there's just another way you could approach this project. I have a lot of students doing photography sets of their object in different environments. That's a really popular one that other students are deciding to do as well. So having trouble with ideas or prompts, use Google or the internet for inspiration. You can search words like ready-made art, photography, set ideas, performance object, art ideas, sculpture, found object, ready-made art, found object, lesson ideas. So really any sort of words that help you out. If you need a prompt, maybe use something like make a project representing how COVID has affected you. Or maybe what's a memory you really enjoy, or something about your life you dislike. Really any sort of question you want to answer with your art. If your research online still isn't helping or you can't think of anything, just message me and I will happily help you come up with something. Okay, how do I know if my project was successful if I get to decide everything for myself? Well, basically the two main things I'm looking for are, does my project show a narrative or idea? When you make this project and answer the self-reflection questions, is there an idea or story behind your artwork? The second one is, does it include or is it made out of a found, one or more, or bought objects? Did you find something around your house? A couple things? Did you buy something to make it out of? Those are the two main requirements, so it's pretty open-ended. Other than that, did you use your class time or work time wisely? Did you explain it well enough in your reflection questions? Again, going back to, does it show a narrative or idea? And did you participate in the flipgrid critique, which I have a flipgrid critique tutorial video on our channel, so look for that if you don't know how to do it. Again, you can message me at any time for questions, like, hey, I have this idea, I don't know if it counts. Most likely it will count, but feel free to message me and ask. Once you have your videos or photo set or anything of your project, you're going to submit it under the Assignments tab on our Teams page with the answered reflection questions, and that is the end of this project.